Welcome everyone to Fundamentals of Kabbalah and Chassidut. Tonight we are continuing with our series on exploring music and song. Last week we dedicated our learning to Perek Shira of the chapters of song. We learned how 70 different creations, from the mineral to the vegetable to the animal, is singing songs. And we learned that there are 4 different possibilities, all of which have a point of truth to them, is who is actually singing these songs. And we saw it was the creation itself, the guiding angel of anyone or any of these creatures, the consciousness of mankind. We look at the world and we learn and we get insight from all the different parts of creation, and we sing the songs. And the last opinion is it's God who's singing the song, and it's as if we, meaning all of creation, are the instrument through which God sings the world into being. So that was a very, very general wrap up of last week. And where we left it, and I said that we would continue from here, was the idea that, interestingly enough, of the 70 creations that are singing, and it covers, like I said, the mineral, vegetable, and animal, it doesn't attribute a song to human beings. One of the reasons is because one of the opinions is it's actually we who are singing the song of all of these creations. We look at each creation and we imagine what their song would be. And so we ended by saying that this week, this is how we're going to start, is that if every creation has a song, the sun, the moon, the stars, the rivers, the deserts, the fields, the trees, the vegetables, the animals, the fish, the birds, and the crawling insects all have a song. Well, it must mean that each one of us has a song also. And this, of course, is a very, very important idea, that since every person is unique, is an individual, then we all have a individual, unique song. The question is, what does that mean? What does it mean that we have a song, and how do we access it? So that's where we're going to begin tonight. So I'm going to present this more or less at a more lower level, even a physical level, and a higher soul, spiritual level. So on a more physical level, there is what's called the circadian cycle. I don't know if I said that properly. Circadian rhythm. Each person has a rhythm of when they sleep best, when they eat best, when they get tired, when their blood sugar falls, all these different physical manifestations within the body, but there's a rhythm to it. And everyone probably recognizes there's certain times of the day that we get either energized or get tired or get hungry. And there's a rhythm. That's it, circadian rhythm. I said it right this time. Circadian rhythm. And it's a very, very real thing. And the word rhythm here is very important because that's a word that we usually associate with music, rhythm. So in a sense, biology is recognizing that the body has a certain song, a certain rhythm that we operate by. The same is when we use the word we're in harmony with nature. So again, we're using a musical term. We're in harmony or in tune with another person. We're in tune with the class that's happening. We tune in. So all of these terms, which we apply to music, is really part of our psyche. It's part of our consciousness. And so when we're in tune with nature, we're in tune with our bodies, then there is a song that we are, let's say, marching to. And we all know, here it could be a physical level or a more spiritual level, when we're not doing what we should be doing, then we're not in harmony with our inner self. We're disjointed, and our life becomes a cacophony. But when we're in tune, we're in step with what we should be doing. Now, this could be just even with eating healthy, or we should be exercising, or we should be relaxing, whatever it is. When we are listening to the signs of our body and our soul, then we feel good with ourselves, we feel good with the world, we have a happy disposition. But when we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, when we're hungry, when we're tired, when we're angry at people, whatever it is, then we are simply not in tune with our inner being. So this is a very, I'll call it on a lower level, but it's a very real level, because it's pretty 24/7 that we can be in tune or not in tune with ourselves and the world around us and the signs that we're getting. On a more spiritual level, the key word here is purpose. When we say that every person has a unique song, what we're really saying is everyone has a unique purpose in this world. Some of us are blessed to have recognized what we feel our purpose is, and some of us are blessed when we are living our lives according to what we feel our mission is, our purpose, our direction in this world. And that's what we're really talking about, each person's inner song. I want to just go back to the physical level, because this is what we discussed at length, is that all matter is energy. Well, a human being is matter also, just like a table is, a wall is, a tree is. A human being is matter also. But that means that we are a ball of energy. We're a matrix of energy. And that energy is pulsating and it's vibrating. And we learned that that's what music is. Music is the vibration of either an instrument or our voice. Our larynx quite literally vibrates in order to make the sounds that it does. And on a physical level, that means not only do we have an energy field around us, but that is what's called a vibrational field. And this is what's called an aura. And I remember back in the 60s, when people started talking about aura and New Age, it sounded like pretty out there, like people have auras and different colors and this and that. But the truth is they've done thousands of experiments, And auras are very real. Auras are very real. Every entity of creation is vibrating. Even an inanimate stone or a mountain is vibrating because it's made up of atoms, and atoms are vibrating. So each person has an energy field, and many times we use this word before, chemistry. Sometimes we meet people and we are drawn to their energy. We can quite literally feel their vibrational manifestation, their charisma. And then there are other people that we like, whoa, not for me, I'm out of here. we also pick up an energy. But all of this energy that I'm talking about, and the inner level, the different rhythms within our body, but also the different rhythms of our soul, all of this is what we're going to call our unique song. But of all of that, the most important thing is purpose or mission. And therefore, that's why so many people feel lost, depressed, frustrated, low esteem. All of these different terms is because people they don't feel they're doing what they're supposed to do. They have all this potential and it's not being activated. It's not being realized. And so people get frustrated. And so that, in the language of a symphony, that's like cacophony. We're just not in tune. Everything is disjointed. It's not, the instruments of our body and soul are not playing in harmony with each other. But when we're feeling good because we feel we're doing what we're supposed to do in this world, then our lives are our song. In other words, the song we're talking about is not necessarily a song that you can actually hear, but it's a song that infuses our entire being. And we hear it. This is what's called the kol dmama daka, the thin, silent voice. If you remember, this is the voice that Eliyahu, Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, hears when he goes down to the Sinai. And he hears God speaking to him in a kol dmama daka, a thin, silent voice. Well, this silent voice, Eliyahu heard. And the same thing with us. When we're in tune with our purpose in this world, and that purpose can be defined in many, many, many different ways. Being a good Ima and Abba is a tremendous purpose. Being a good son and daughter, being a good neighbor, then we can go to the professions, being a good X, whatever the profession is, being an innovative person in your profession, serving God, doing the mitzvot, being part of Am Yisrael, protecting the environment, doing good deeds. All of these are, when we say a purpose, it's not like a one-word answer. But all of those things that we feel are important for us to be doing, and we are doing them, that gets us in touch with this thin, silent voice. But that voice is a song. And that is a song that we march to. And we all know, we all have favorite songs, sometimes many songs, a song for when we're sad, a song for when we're happy. an uplifting song, an inspiring song. But everyone also has these inner silent songs that no one else knows about and no one hears. And a lot of times where this comes out is when we pray. A lot of times when we pray, we're praying to the word is nusach. Nusach means a certain way of chanting or saying or singing the prayers. And every community has their nusach, but every person has their nusach. Every person in nusach, when we're in the shower, we have a song. When we're walking in the forest, we have a song. No one else knows it. And sometimes it's never enunciated. It's just in our soul. It imbues our whole being. So this is this idea, just like a rock has a song, the sun has a song, the date palm has a song, the elephant has a song. We also have a song, and our song is more unique than any other creation because we're the only creation that is created in the image of God. We are unique by our very essence of being a human being. We are unique. So I'll just end with this idea that some of the ways that we can get in tune with our inner song is through prayer, through meditation, introspection, being in nature, being in community, doing the mitzvot, learning Torah. Each one of these has its angle that can help us find our purpose in life and our unique song in which we sing out this purpose. Excuse me. So right now, to end this part, and this is really a summation of a number of classes we've had up to now. After this, we are going to start not a new subject, but a whole different idea. And we're going to be discussing the 10 different types of music and the 10 expressions for song. But before we do it, I want to read, this is a translation from the first chief rabbi, and then it was Palestine, Rabbi Avram Yitzhak Kook. Along with being the first chief rabbi, he was a tremendous mystic, and he was an incredible poet. And he wrote books of poetry, and they're very, very inspirational, deep, existential. He doesn't hold back. He delves into the essence of the human condition. So this is one of the things he wrote, and I think it will be obvious why I'm reading this. But in a certain way, it's almost like his take on Perek Shira in his own way, and it's actually magnificent. So I'm going to read it to you. There is one who sings the song of his own life, and in himself or herself, he or she finds everything, their full spiritual satisfaction. There is another who sings the song of his people. He leaves the circle of his own individual self because he finds it without sufficient breadth, without an idealistic basis. He aspires towards the heights, and he attaches himself with a gentle love to the whole community of Israel. Together with it, he sings its songs. He feels grieved in its afflictions and delights in its hopes. every time I say he, all the she's out there, please understand it's he and she. He contemplates noble and pure thoughts about its future and probes with love and wisdom its inner spiritual essence. There is another who reaches towards more distant realms, and he goes beyond the boundary of Israel to sing the song of humanity. His spirit extends to the wider vistas of the majesty of humanity in general and his noble essence. He or she aspires towards mankind's general goal and looks forward to its higher perfection. From this source of life, he draws the subjects of his meditation and study, his aspirations, and his visions. Then there is one who rises towards even wider horizons until he or she links themselves with all existence, with all of God's creatures, with all worlds, and he sings his song with all of them. It is of one such as this that tradition has said that whoever sings a portion of song each day is assured of having a share in the world to come. And then there is one who rises with all these songs in one ensemble, and they all join voices. Together they sing their songs with beauty. Each one lends vitality and life to the other. They are sounds of joy and gladness, sounds of jubilation and celebration, sounds of ecstasy and holiness. The song of the self, the song of the people, the song of humanity, the song of all creation, all merge in him at all times in every hour. And this full comprehension rises to become the song of holiness, the song of God, the song of Israel in its full strength and beauty, in its full authenticity and greatness. The name Israel stands for Shir Kale, the song of God. It is a simple song, a twofold song, a threefold song, and a fourfold song. It is the Song of Songs by Solomon, whose name means peace or wholeness. It is the song of the King in whom is wholeness. This comes from Rav Kook's book, Orot HaKodesh, Volume 2, pages 444 to 445. Orot HaKodesh, Volume 2, pages 444 to 445. This is a magnificent expression of song on every level. And everything we've been learning since the beginning of the series, in a certain way, Rav Kook plugged into here. And I'm sure you agree that this is like highly inspirational. I will say, B'li Neder, on Thursday, I will try to share this with you, so you'll all have the version of this. Bezrat Hashem. Okay. So I just want to end this before we move to a different subject. I want to just bless all of us that we find our unique, special song, and we share it with the world. And if we're having a hard time finding it, we don't give up, because it is there. It is absolutely there. And I just bless everyone to find that thin, silent voice within us that creates the inspirational music that we can grow and aspire to. Now, for those who came on late, I already said, if you go to the very beginning of the chats, I see there's only 4 chats. So right at the beginning of the chats, we posted the link to the chart that we're going to be using now. So I invite everyone to look at that chat, or if you prefer, in the WhatsApp that we sent yesterday, the same chart. Without the chart, I'll explain it. So it's, if for whatever reason someone can't access it, it's not the end of the world. But that is the chart that we will be using. And everything I'm going to say now is from Rav Ginsburg's book, The Quill of the Music, The Quill of the Soul. And in the Tikkunei Zohar, it talks about 10 types of song. In the Midrash, it talks about 10 expressions of prayer. Now, we already learned that the gematria, the numerical value of the word for song, shirah, equals exactly the most important word for prayer, tefillah, 515. So there's this idea, a really ancient idea, that there's 10 types of song or expressions that are used in song, especially in the book of Tehillim, in Psalms. And there's 10 expressions for prayer. Actually, when we look in different sources, there are more expressions of prayer than just 10. And there are more than 10 expressions for song or music. But we know that the number 10 is so important, and so many times our sages give over concepts in tens, because 10 connects to the 10 sfirot. And so Rav Ginsburg begins his explanation of these 10 expressions of music. And he says that there are different versions of what these 10 are. And I did some research. And for example, the 10 that Rav Ginsburg is going to present is almost identical to what's in the Tikkunei Zohar, but there's actually one difference. One of the ones that Rav Ginsburg includes is not included in Tikkunei Zohar, and one that's in the Tikkunei Zohar is not in Rav Ginsburg's. The other type of numerating expressions of song is found in Rabbi Nachman's Tikkun Klali. Rabbi Nachman worked very, very, very hard to come up what he called the general rectification. And in the beginning, it was a search for a series of psalms that could be said. And it was initially, it was specifically for people having different sexual desires and frustration through this. I don't want to get into that more, but just what's called tikkun brit. People were having a problem with guarding their covenant. And in the end, though, he came up with what's called tikkun klali, which became more inclusive. And in the last years of his life, Rabbi Nachman really, in a sense, pushed that all of his students should say these 10 psalms. What tikkun klali is are 10 psalms. And for those who, anyone could go online and find all of this and all of the psalms. But if anyone is interested, I'm just going to read for you quickly, if anyone's taking notes out there. These are the 10 psalms that Rabbi Nachman picked: 16, 32, 41, 42, 59, 77, 90, 105, 137, and 150. Again, all of this is available online. Just Google Rebbe Nachman's Tikkun Klali. Now, what's interesting here is Rebbe Nachman does not use all 10 expressions of song. For example, one of them that we'll be studying, Lamnat Seach, he uses actually repeatedly, but he does include many of the expressions of song. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be following what Rav Ginsburg is giving over here, because the Tikkun Zohar gives over 10 names in an order, but doesn't explicitly say this one is Keter, this one is Chachma, this one is Bina. And that's what Rav Ginsburg did. And his order is different than the Tikkun Zohar, because there are other commentators that also dealt with this. And so Rav Ginsburg, I imagine through a lot of research, he ordered the 10 expressions of song according to the Sfirot, and that's how we're going to do it. And I have to mention right at the beginning, Rav Ginsburg tells us what the name of the expression of song is, and its connection to the Sphira. And then what he does in the book is he explains in general what kind of music is this. It's not just it's an expression of song, but there's a mode of music that is expressed by this name of this type of song. But then Rav Ginsburg does something else, and this part I'm not able to give over, is Rav Ginsburg is a master of music. He has approximately 40 or 50 music discs of his original music. And he knows like the whole history of Chabad music. So at the end of each of the expressions of music, he says the type of song that fits this expression of music is X. But I am not familiar with all of the names of the songs of Chabad. If someone starts singing them, I could sing along, but I don't know the official names of them. But in the book, that's a very important part. I would say, unfortunately, most people will be like me and won't know the names of these songs unless you're very seeped in Chabad tradition. But that doesn't really take away from what we're going to be learning. But I'm just mentioning that Rav Ginsburg was able to identify specific songs that fit specific sfirot. And I found that just an amazing idea. On my own, I now think of sometimes when I hear a song, it's like, oh, that is a song that goes with Netzach. That's a kind of song that goes with Teferet. So it's a very, very amazing kind of concept. Okay, so we're going to start. I doubt that we're going to get through it all this week. We're going to get as far as we can, and we will continue next week. So we're going to begin with Keter, and the type of song, the name or the expression of song connected to Keter is Ashrei. We all know that the prayer, the 145th Psalm, which actually, when you look at the 145th Psalm, it doesn't begin with Ashrei. Ashrei was added later but we refer to it as Ashrei, and we say it 3 times every day. And Rav Ginsburg puts it in Keter. What does Ashrei mean? Ashrei means, it comes from the root osher, to be satisfied, osher is riches, to feel that one's life is full of riches and to be grateful for those riches. Now, what's very, very interesting is all 10 of these expressions appear in the book of Tehillim. And the very first word of Tehillim is Ashrei. The very first word. So this is like the Keter, because there's an expression in the Gemara, everything goes after the beginning. So the fact that David HaMelech begins his book of Tehillim with the word Ashrei means that obviously it's on a very high level. So it's interesting because the tribe of this month, yesterday was Rosh Chodesh, is Asher. Asher comes from the word Ashrei. And in fact, when he was named Asher because it brought so much joy and happiness and fulfillment that's what his name was. Asher, and comes from Ashrei. So Rav Ginsburg says that, so what kind of melody is associated with Ashrei and with the idea of Keter? So he says it's a joyous song, but more than joy, it's a pleasant song. It's not, Rav Ginsburg said, it's not a get up and dance joyous song. It's an uplifting, pleasant song. And he says it's one that has spaces between the notes. Some nigunim go like quick staccato notes. He said in Keter, it's pleasant, it flows, it's tanug. And therefore, it's not necessarily a fast song, but when you hear it, it brings pleasantness to the soul. So that's our first one. In Chachma, in wisdom, the type of song is called maskil. Maskil comes from the word seichel, which means intelligence. Chachma, of course, is wisdom. It has to do with intelligence. And in the book of Tehillim, for example, the 89th Psalm begins with maskil. That's the name of this type of song, is a maskil. Now, we have to remember that all of the Tehillim were written as songs. We're used to saying them or reciting them. But David, that's why there's 10 expressions. And many, many, many Psalms begin with different ones of these expressions. Because in David's mind, if he's calling it a maskil, it means it's a type of music that's connected to intellect. Now, it happens that the 89th Psalm is called Maskil le'etan ha'ezrachi. Eitan ha'ezrachi means Eitan who either is from, who bursts out in light. And the Talmud says this is referring to Avram Avinu, because according to tradition, Avram Avinu wrote this Tehillim. Now, this is something that many people don't know, and it's important to mention. In the tractate of Bava Batra, there's a whole discussion of who wrote which books of the Tanakh. And we would think it's all obvious. If it's the book of Yeshua, well, Yeshua wrote it. If it's the book of Mishlei, we have a tradition that Shlomo wrote it. But it's actually not as simple. We're not going to go into it. I believe it's on page 15 or 16 of the tractate Bava Batra. But there it mentions there's actually 10 composers of the Psalms. Most people say the Psalms, David HaMelech he composed all 150 Psalms. But the Talmud says it's not true. David HaMelech wrote the vast majority of them, but there are many other composers. Some of them only wrote one, like this one. The 89th Psalm is attributed to Avram Avinu. Now, again, that doesn't mean that Avram Avinu wrote every single word of it, because maybe King David had a general idea and he filled in. But again, according to tradition, Avram Avinu is the inspiration of the 89th Psalm, which begins maskil, which is, again, a word of intellect. So Rav Ginsburg says, so what kind of melody would fit this type of name of music, maskil? So he said here, this is a type that is, he says it's sharp, and the way that it's composed, there is a very logical structure to it. And that in most cases, it will be a wordless nigun. And in fact, Rav Ginsburg points out that many of these are meant to be nigunim that are composed without words. Later in generations, sometimes put words to them. But many of the nigunim are pure nigunim. And you see that in Chabad a lot of the time. They're just nigunim. There's no words. And so he said that this, because the intellect is, as it were, up here, and it's kind of like in our heads. It's like a wordless nigun. And he said that it's a very easy to grasp, but very logical kind of nigun. The next one is Bina. The next sphere is Bina. And this is shir. One of the most used words for song is shir, and in the feminine is shira. So why is that connected to Bina? And here Rav Ginsburg says shir always refers to a very joyous nigun, a very joyous nigun. So what's its connection to Bina? So we're told the verse, Aim habanim smecha. A mother of children is happy. And so happiness, joy, simcha, is always associated with Bina. A mother of children is joyous. Now this applies to men also. In other words, giving birth to an idea, to a company, to a innovation is like giving birth. Giving birth to a Torah innovative thought, the chidush. That brings joy to us. So if you remember in our series on the Sfirot, the inner dimension of Bina is Simcha. Aim abanim smecha. So Rav Ginsburg says that this is a kind of very joyous nigun. He says not even necessarily a dance nigun, but it's connected to Ashrei of Keter, which was also a joyous, pleasant nigun. So he says this is also joyous and pleasurable. It could lead to dancing, but it's not like created with that in mind. Like, for example, when you go to a wedding, there's certain nigunim that are composed specifically as dance music. He said this is not necessarily, but it could be. And here he explains a very important thing about shir in general. We learned this in the story of the Alter Rebbe. When the Alter Rebbe read the Mishnah, all masters of oxen can take their oxen out by a collar and take them back in on Shabbos. And the word for the collar is sher, and the word for the ox is shor. And if you remember, the Alter Rebbe translated as all masters of song transcend in song and are drawn in song. And so, because the word for collar is the same as song, Rav Ginsburg says that, like, the essence of a shir is it repeats itself over and over again. In other words, and this is, I'd say, in great measure, most songs, you could sing them for 5-10 minutes, but they have 2 stanzas or 3 stanzas, and then they just return and return. Sometimes they go to a higher octave, but it's a repeating circle of music. And that's connected to shir. Because shir, as I said, is the same root as a collar, and it's called a shir because it's round. And so this is very, very, very connected to the whole idea of giving birth, the whole cycle of life. And it comes from the mother image, which is Bina. So here, Rav Ginsburg places shir in Bina. The next is chesed. So what kind of song goes with chesed? This is Hallel. Now, it's interesting because in Tikkunei Zohar, it's called Hallelujah. Here, Rav Ginsburg just says Hallel, but of course it's connected. Why is Hallel connected with chesed? And what kind of music is Hallel? So first of all, the word Hallel, the root, actually also means light. And there are a number of verses. The most important is Behilo Nero Ale Roshi. He places the candle of his light upon my head. So Hallel actually also means light. This is where you get the word halo, by the way. Halo comes from Hallel because Hallel means not just a type of music, but it means an expression of light. Halo. So what's the connection of chesed and light? Well, we know that the 7 days of creation, this was our last series, the 7 days of creation correspond to the 7 lower sefirot. The first day of creation is chesed, the second day is gevura, and so forth, until we get to the 7th day, which is Shabbat. So what's created on the first day? Light. And light represents God's chesed. We have the expression, chesed kel Kol hayom. The kindness of God is all the day. Excuse me. And the name of God associated with the sphera of Chesed is Kel. Chesed, Kel, Kol hayom. The name Aleph and a Lamed. I'm pronouncing it Kel, but it's Aleph and Lamed. So Hallel is one of the most important pieces of music that we have, because Hallel is a certain series of psalms. It's the 113th through the 118th psalm. And we sing that every Rosh Chodesh and every holiday. And we only sing it on holidays. Even on Shabbos, we don't sing it. Only on holidays do we sing Hallel. So this kind of music is among the most inspirational, joyous, arousing kind of music is Hallel. Now there's also what's called the Great Hallel. The Great Hallel we only say once in the year, and that is Pesach night, where we say the whole Hallel, and then we add the 132nd Psalm. And that becomes the Great Hallel. And so again, Hallel is saved. In fact, the Talmud says, anyone who says Hallel every day, I forgot the adjective that is used, but it's a very negative. Anyone thinks that they could say Hallel every day, they could say, oh, I can praise God by using the Hallel every day. They say that person is fooling themselves. In other words, the sages understood human nature. And they saved Hallel for special occasions. After Mashiach comes, the whole world will be on the level, in a sense, of saying Hallel every day. But the sages are saying right now, there's too much war in the world, too much pain, the temple is destroyed. We're not on the level to say Hallel every day. So that just tells us how special Hallel is, that we save it for holidays. And it's a tradition to sing at least part of Hallel. I had the great privilege for off and on after 20 years to be able to do Hallel with Reb Shlomo. And there, Hallel could take an hour to an hour and a half. Like you don't hold back. Hallel, I mean, you can knock off Hallel in 5 minutes, but it's so special to say Hallel, and especially to sing it. That's the whole thing. Hallel is an expression of song. Hallel is meant, I mean, all of prayer in a sense is meant to be sung, but there's nothing that should be sung more than Hallel. And so over the years, hundreds and hundreds of nigunim have been composed to the words of Hallel and are used in Hallel. Okay, you know what? I think I'm going to stop here because we're like halfway through. I don't want to rush through the other 5. And so I think we will just continue next week. So we got a late start today. And we'll continue with the rest of the Sfirot and the rest of the names of the expressions of song and what kinds of song they are. And then we will So Dara's asking, when we do Hallel in the Seder, towards the end of the Hallel, it's one of the 15 steps. In every Haggadah is Hodu Lashem Ki Tov Ki Leolam Chazdo. So that is the that makes it the great Hallel, the great Hallel. It's Psalm 132. Has 26 verses for the numerical value of God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. And it begins, Hodu Lashem Ki Tov Ki Leolam Chasdo. That's also part of Hallel itself. Okay, so we'll end with a bracha. There are so many different types of music, so many different beats and cadences that we can incorporate into our beings, that we should make songs such an important part of our lives. We should make our prayers into songs. We should make our songs into prayers. We should take our Torah and turn it into prayer, and we should take our prayer and turn it into Torah.